joined, so if
All right. It is 4:35, excuse me, it's 4:34. My name is Mary Metzger. I will be taking the role of chair today, and that Amy Kowinski, who is the chair, is not available. Excuse me, thank you, it's 4:32. So I'm calling this meeting to order. The first order of business, before we go to the roll call, I want to acknowledge that Tia Hatton was very kind to send us all protocols for
I think we just lost Karen, so I think we need to pause.
Oh.
So sorry.
About the luncheon. Probably have nobody getting that.
Yeah. Let me text you really quick.
You heard I was in charge and decided to go home. Oh, she's gonna be in charge. I'm not doing this one.
Commissioner Carlson, can you hear us?
Hello, yes. Sorry, had technical difficulties.
Can you?
So as I was noting, Tia Hatton was kind enough to send us meeting protocols to remind us of our behaviors during these meetings. My behavior being the worst of all, so I thank you, Tia, for doing that for us. We'll now have roll call. Commissioner Kristen Conkle had notified us that she won't be at the meeting. Commissioner Tom Lammy.
Here.
Commissioner Robert Skurlock. Here. Commissioner Elijah Bourne.
On his way.
On his way. And then Commissioner Cameron Carlson.
Here.
I'm going to ask if anyone would like to volunteer to read the land acknowledgement. It's one of our very special components of this meeting. Commissioner Tom Lammy has volunteered to do that. Thank you.
The Sustainability Commission humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of the area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by Navajo descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you very much. Just as a heads up, it is our native descendants, not just Navajos. Thank you, though. Now we open the meeting to public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to make? At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject within their jurisdiction and is not scheduled before the commission on that day. Due to open meeting laws, the commission cannot discuss or act on items presented during this portion of the agenda. To address the commission on an item that is on the agenda, please use the terms chat function. Teams chat function, excuse me, simply type in public comment to indicate to the chair that you would like to comment. The chair will then recognize you when it is time for public comment, and the staff will unmute your microphone if needed. Is there anyone here who would like to make a public comment? Thank you very much. Obviously, there is none. We'd like to at this time move on to the approval of April minutes. That was sent to us with our agenda. So view the draft April 2025 minutes here. Have that checked off if you have it. Is there anyone who would like to have a discussion regarding these minutes? Is there anyone who would like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved. We now go on to the commission's business. 2025 Innovate Green Business Pitch Competition winner Tech Gene, represented by Jay Jones, is here today to make a presentation of all this. Congratulations on winning.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Good job.
And Jay, I have one quick slide about the competition. I'm not sure exactly what you'll cover on that, so I just wanted to do a really quick.
That sounds good.
So the Innovate Green Business Pitch Competition is a collaboration between
4:36. Thank you for joining us.
Missed your opening.
You did. It was profoundly important too. Joining us is Elijah Bourne.
Thank you. All right, so the Innovate Green Business Pitch Competition is a collaboration between the sustainability teams and the economic development teams here at the city. We've been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and it's a annual competition for sustainable business, product, or service ideas that reduce or remove carbon dioxide, conserve water.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm not sure everybody up there.
Or repurpose waste into marketable materials. And there's also a lot of like subcategories within that, including like resilience. And applicants compete for a cash prize. Did we lose? How long did we lose
Well, we have Elijah. We have Elijah.
Cameron? Excellent. Okay. And applicants compete for a cash prize up to $30,000. And this year's competition occurred on April 11th and 12th. And last month, we had 4 applicants competing, and we had 1 that really outshone the rest, and that's who we have here speaking with us today.
So much.
Jay, would you like to introduce your assistant?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna introduce her there as well.
Okay.
This is Shiloh. She is actually the mechanical engineer for Tech Junior, and as well as my partner. So
Nice to meet you.
all right, greetings, Commission and esteemed guests. Today I'm going to be talking about the genie tree that you heard of earlier, and how it's innovating affordable, sustainable food solutions.
Next one.
Yeah.
Oh, I was wondering. Okay, we read that.
I just paused for a second. So a little bit about myself, and the mission as well. So I'm a sustainable tech scientist with a passion for change. Our mission is to provide access to basic necessities for all, especially vulnerable communities, by developing and providing affordable, sustainable tech. Our mission is rooted in the strength and ingenuity of communities like my own, the Black and Puerto Rican community, inspired by the belief that tech can empower community resilience and equity. Operated by myself as well as Shiloh, who's a Flagstaff Native Dene woman, who's the mechanical engineer as well. So a little bit about Tech Genie. Tech Genie is Flagstaff-based sustainable tech company, creator of the Genie Tree, which is an affordable automated aeroponics tower, Black and Hispanic owned, and the mission is to empower communities through climate smart tech. So this is the Genie Tree, or at least the prototype. It's a vertical aeroponics tower for indoor, outdoor, year-round growing. Uses 90 to 98% less water than standard traditional farming. Grows plants 30 to 50% faster with no soil and no runoff. Affordable, user-friendly, accessible system. So I want to talk about how that kind of aligns with Flagstaff's sustainability vision. And it was actually like completely independent of that. I just originally had created this because, like I said, I really am into sustainable tech, and I've been trying to figure out ways to make it affordable for people because I've seen some good sustainable tech out there, but it's so expensive and it's crazy. And so when I learned about that competition, as I'm kind of doing research about the competition, I'm like, wow, this like hits so many different points. So I want to kind of talk about that. So Flagstaff's sustainability vision is carbon neutrality by 2030. Some of the climate action goals are slashing emissions from energy, food, and transport, improving community resilience, conserving water, and reducing waste, as well as prioritizing equitable access to climate solutions. So first, I'll talk a little bit about the water conservation aspect of it. On the next slide here, the Genie Tree uses 2 to 5% of the water that standard soil garden would use. It's a closed loop recirculating system, so there's no way to run off. It aligns with Flagstaff's emphasis on water smart policies, incorporating technology that sources water independently from Flagstaff's primary source of water. So we actually kind of our vision would be to not use almost any of the water for these systems, whether it be the independent systems in homes or the ones that we're putting in greenhouses, using collecting it from a more sustainable source than the current source of water that we're looking at. And then talking a little bit about the local food and local impact that it has. So the in-home model supports Flagstaff's goal to localize food systems and reduce vehicle miles traveled, as well as one genie tree can produce dozens of organic vegetables, reducing trips to grocery stores and food-related emissions, supports urban resilience by enabling year-round growing in households regardless of climate or space. And then our automated gardens, so for a compact greenhouse that's like 12 by 8 square feet, we can do about 1,000 individual plants harvesting at once. And obviously, the bigger that the greenhouse is, the more that we can do. So it enables dense food production in any neighborhood, shortens supply chains, cuts food emissions, and can be used for community gardens, schools, and public and commercial spaces as well. And then, so going into something that's been a really fun process to kind of figure out is waste reduction and nutrient efficiency. This next slide. So zero soil, zero chemical runoff recycles 100% of those nutrients. TechGenie is actually developing a thermal compost to nutrient system that will allow essentially incentivize zero in-home food waste. So we've accomplished that in our home using this system, and then the goal is to turn that compost into nutrients. And there's a few different ways that we can incentivize that. And that ties into the sustainability of the actual structure itself and provides that nutrients that towers need. So it aligns with Flagstaff's waste reduction and carbon neutrality goals. It supports compost and waste diversion goals as well. Then moving on to emissions reduction. Every tower reduces emissions by eliminating constant long distance food transport, which avoids fossil fuel machinery and food production. Towers function on low power and can integrate solar setups as well. Then on the equity and resilience aspect of things, we're able to provide affordable design for community-wide access at 50% of the market cost due to our patent pending utility and design. Supports food security in underserved neighborhoods, installs easily at schools, housing units, and community gardens. It also directly contributes to equitable climate adaptation. And so when we look at the measurable outcomes, we see that 90 to 98% water savings per unit. And then on top of that, that 2% that you do see, that 2 to 10% that you do see would not come from Flagstaff's local main water sources. It would come from a more sustainable source that we're looking at. And then 30 to 50% faster yields than traditional methods. Exponentially higher yields when you're looking at horizontal space versus traditional methods. Because it is modular, so I can just go as vertical as possible with 2 by 2 feet of space. And it harvests approximately 1,000 plants at once in a compact greenhouse. Exponential reduction in emissions per pound of produce as well. So we're looking at different ways that we can support the community with this. So we'll talk a little bit about that on the next page. So working with partnerships with the Southside Community Garden. So our prototype is designated to that. Liberation Earth to set up some of those automated greenhouses, as well as government and educational backing and investor interest as well. And then as far as the go-to-market strategy, so we're working with social media influencers that are in this space that are excited to promote this and have already started a little bit. Nonprofits and community programs, as well as farmers, CSAs, local food networks, as well as setting up a structure for employee housing and local governance as well. So in conclusion, the Genie Tree is a scalable, affordable, and automated food security solution. It reduces water, repurposes local waste, cuts carbon emissions, and provides an equitable form of climate action directly to uh, the community, backed by community support and innovative marketing strategies, supports Flagstaff's carbon neutrality plan, slashes emissions from energy, food, and transport, improves community resilience, conserves water and reduces waste, as well as prioritizes equitable access to climate solutions. Um, so I want to give my gratitude for your time and attention today. And I just want to say, let's grow Flagstaff's sustainable future together. And my name is Jay Jones. I'm the founder of TechGenie as well as sustainable tech scientist. We reached out at _TechGenie as well as jjones@liberationenergy.org. This was a video. It was a really cool video. Imagine it's
Big heart.
So,
What was in the video?
it was some of the recent growth that we've seen on prototypes. So,
Cool.
yeah. Really cool. Got a big old tomato barn, like this crazy long and big squash leaves and different kinds of lettuce going crazy and some peppers coming in. So it's fun stuff. But I promise it was very cool.
Thank you so much for your presentation tonight and congratulations.
Appreciate that so
Can
much.
I ask if there's any commission members have a question to ask of Mr. Jones?
Yeah, well, what's the light source for these? I mean, I see them set up independently there, but how do you envision them in a house especially?
So I do have and just one LED light, and so the cool thing about this, we're looking at every way that can be super sustainable. So you don't usually see one of these systems with one light source. We're able to do it with one LED bar because we also take these aren't on the market, so we have to create them ourselves, but we essentially can take almost like a trifold and attach Mylar to it and reflect that light effectively around the entire thing. So very low power light source, LED kind of bar.
So kind of reliable. I mean, a kid isn't gonna break it or something running around in a house, you know?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. So we look at different things. So one of the things that we're doing with the design, like I said, that's the prototype. So we're making some of those little changes already. So one of the things that we're looking at is with those bars, we can actually attach it to the tower itself to where when you can bump it, it's not gonna break. So it's gonna be literally attached to it. Like I said, part of the design process. But, yeah.
So I have a question. So I noticed that it described that it works within a greenhouse, and I'm assuming when you're talking about this, that you can effectively build your own greenhouse within your house. Might be
Yeah, you
able
can do
to
that as well.
garage with an LED light, et cetera.
Sure.
So my other question is, and it's not a very pleasant one, I guess, is how much would one cost?
Yes,
To-
yes,
to
that's a
charge
great
for
question.
this
That's
really
a great question. So the market price for these is $900. We're pricing them at $333.
So when you say market price, you mean there's other people that have this particular product?
Not this particular product, but something similar.
Okay.
Yes. But yeah, essentially works the exact same way. It's just a lot more expensive. And like I said, it's because of our pending patent that's on the utility and design of it that we can get those prices so low.
And you provide support for that $333?
Yes, so we're still trying to design that structure of it as far as like the support structure of it, and we're kind of thinking like 1 year warranty, 1 year support. Ideally, what we really want to do, so we're looking at talking to NAU about possibly doing a program where they can rent them out to students every year with maybe a grant or something like that they have, and then what then I can do with that is, okay, everyone comes in at the beginning of the semester, I can come in and give a class on these and then, periodically do classes as well, like every month, like, hey, if you want to do this kind of vegetable, this is, the best way you can do this. So definitely want to stay engaged in the support aspect for sure.
Thank you so much. It was a very pleasant presentation, and congratulations again.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
But I appreciate you guys' time and attention today. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just wish you had business.
Dude, it's right here. You have a phone?
Oh, it's so funny. I'll look at that.
Yeah, they're at the green pitch competition, they're asking me, how do we get any contact? And he's like, oh, just scan the code.
Thank you, sir.
Sustainability. Great one.
Jay Wexler, I want to do this.
Oh, sure, thanks.
It says scan
Yeah,
it.
oh, I see.
I wonder if we can get one.
Yeah, I mean, their pre-sales are available. Actually signed the contract for that funding today, so as soon as I cash that check, we're buying the inventory and getting it rolling. So
I should think.
But yeah,
I can kind of envision them all over town.
yeah, you're gonna have promise.
Going to the hotels.
You're already there.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, from our own Sustainability Department, we have the 2025-2026 update to the carbon neutrality plan to be provided by Jenny Beeman, Climate Action Sector Director.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't know you were a director.
Section director.
Section.
Um,
How do you want to do this? You want to take the team?
Yeah, I'll share from here. Sorry, my computer is not having it today, but let's see.
Weird things out.
We'll see how it goes. Hi, folks. Thanks for having me. Thanks for making time. I am gonna walk through changes to the carbon neutrality plans that we are just starting to work on. So this is very much an opportunity for input. I'd love to hear sort of what y'all think, if you have any feedback, etc. Tia, do you have a power cord? I'm just realizing that this is, I might go. Do you have this? Not
Same kind.
thank you so much. Sorry, that's apparently at home. And apparently my computer's not gonna work. All right, while we wait for that, I'm Jenny Neiman, Climate Action Section Director. And so my job is really focused on how do we achieve our climate goals? And so management of the carbon neutrality plan, management of how we're making progress on that, how we're working with the community on that, how we're working with our partners on that, et cetera. We have, I think, as you all know, a lot of different team members that work on many different aspects of this plan, really everyone in our office. And so the plan is deeply important to us. I'm going to close a couple things while we're waiting on that to exist. The plan's deeply important to our work. It really guides our work. I'll talk a little bit really quickly, I guess, about the history of the plan. The carbon neutrality plan, well, Flagstaff wrote its first climate action and adaptation plan in 2017 and 2018. That was Flagstaff's first climate plan. It was the first community-wide climate plan in Arizona, actually. The other cities had had a plan that was really focused on municipal operations, but this was actually the first community-wide climate plan that looked at all of the emissions across a community and what that might mean for our entire community, not just the municipality. So the, sorry, still not coming.
Well, you can dance, come on.
This is what are, what happens when you have 40,000 documents of it. But that climate plan was really community-based. It was called the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan because we tried really hard to focus both on mitigation as well as on adaptation. So mitigation, reducing our emissions. So not just though reducing our emissions. We really wanted to talk about how are we adapting to change. Particularly because this was Flagstaff's first climate plan, right? We really wanted to help folks understand the wide breadth of climate action that there is, right? It's not just energy efficiency, right? It's preparing for change. It's working with our fire department, helping folks think about their homes and their vulnerabilities and having defensive space. And it really runs the gamut. So
As we all look at the black.
we'll get there, I know. Yeah, I'm assuming, yeah, I wonder if it's actually connected to your computer? Were you? No, because you were presenting through Teams. All right, let me try again.
I was plugged in. Do you want to just plug in?
That cord? Whoever.
You did very nicely speaking on that.
Thank you. I mean,
Great job.
I appreciate that. We'll see if it works.
Oh, no, that's Cece.
Here we go. Look at that. All right. Thanks, folks. Sorry for the interruption. Here we are. Can you see that on the team screen? That's probably our gap.
Let me see. I'm not actually on the team.
Ah. Oh, now I don't. Okay, I'm on now on Teams actually, so this is gonna work out just fine. Or maybe it won't. Sorry, folks.
It looks like it's working on Teams.
Well, I know, but now I messed it up, so now you can see this on Teams and not,
You can't see it from your computer right now.
Yeah.
Why do we need it on Teams?
I think that's the way.
Screen. No.
It just finally worked on
Well,
Teams,
it's
which
not
is fine.
Teams.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry.
Here we are. I think. Well, nope. Okay, here we are. All right, I think it's actually pretty fine. Give me 1 second, I'm so sorry, folks.
Okay, I have a packed agenda today.
Yeah. Really hard to not do this. Okay. Now we have this here. Aha.
Mitigation and adaptation.
I'm Gracie, I'm new intern. But it
Well,
was so
thank you
good
for
to,
joining us, Gracie. It was nice to have
it
you.
was nice to meet all of you, and I hope to work with you guys too. Yeah, thank you guys. Are you gonna be with us the whole summer? So I'll see you guys again. for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe better later.
No. Bye, you guys.
Thank you so much, Gracie.
Have a great day.
You too, Gracie.
Yeah.
Drive safely. Drive your bike safely.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, you were super interesting talking.
You know?
Yeah.
I know. It will get much less exciting, I promise.
You want us to drop down to another agenda item and come back?
I think I'm almost there.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about
That's right. Gift of time.
Just wing it, Jenny.
that. Thanks. But I trusted myself more after the end of this very long week. I might. Okay, I think I've got it. I think I've got it. Okay. I want to see that on Teams. Yes? Oh.
Yeah.
Hooray. Okay, we're there. Sorry, folks. So the carbon neutrality plan really is our guiding document. After 2018, the community came back to us, and right when we were passing the carbon neutral or climate action adaptation plan in 2018, the UN published what's called the 1.5 degrees sort of findings that said, no, we actually need to move much more quickly. And so we had this moment that said, oh gosh, should we not, adopt this plan that was based on 2 degrees, right? And holding warming to 2 degrees. And we said, no, we're going to adopt it because this is our first step, but then we will have a community conversation. Well, the community came back to us about a year later. They started a petition to ask for the declaration of a climate emergency and also to set a goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. That was now in alignment with that, with the science and just the need to move faster by all cities across the world. And so they had a petition, they had 5 hours of really incredible testimony from all these different kinds of groups in the community. That was in January 2020. Then things changed, but it came back to council, and in June 2020, the city council declared a climate emergency and asked us to come up with a climate plan that would set a goal for carbon neutrality. So that is how we got to this plan. It was adopted in 2021. And then we revised it. I'll talk a little bit about that. But we are now at our first sort of larger update. And so I'm just going to talk through what that means and what that means for, how we'll work with the commission through this update and the sort of topics and content that we're going to try to tackle as part of that. So, here we are. In terms of our agenda, I'm just going to go through sort of foundations of the plan just as kind of a refresher. We'll talk a little bit about progress updates, and then I'll talk about the 2025 update. In terms of our foundations, so we have 3 core goals. They are reducing emissions, building resilience, and prioritizing equity. They are stated differently in the plan. That's not word for word, but these are the basic ideas of what we want to do. So there are sometimes ideas that, you know, this is not a plan that really thinks about, you know, the changes in Flagstaff, but it really does. It really says these are our 3 goals. Not one is more important than the other. It's not just about solar or, you know, saving energy. It's really also about floodproofing and forest health and thinking about the health of our streams, as well as, while we're acting in those 2 sort of core ways, making sure that we're bringing our whole community along. Climate action that isn't open to all members of our community is not necessarily good climate action, right? We want everyone to be able to participate in climate action. We don't want to be leaving folks behind as we go through these transitions. And so equity is an incredibly important part of this plan, as well as part of cursor in the right place. In terms of how we do that and how we achieve these 3 goals, we have 15, oh my goodness, this is, we have 15 different focus areas. It's a lot. There is a lot involved in this plan. And the reason for that is because climate action really means rethinking everything, means rethinking the way we do business in pretty much all sectors. It doesn't mean we have to see drastic change in all sectors, but it means that we consider our impacts and think about how we get to our goals. And so we have grouped them into these sort of 4 focus areas: neighborhoods, energy consumption, and commitments. Commitments really relates to both carbon dioxide removal, as well as healthy forest, health and safety, and economic prosperity. And these are really how we get there. So that's how the plan is organized right now. In terms of how we want to update the carbon neutrality, and this is where we'll spend most of the time today. We have 6 different ways that we are updating the plan. And so I'm going to go through each of these, but I just wanted to like pause here, because this is really it. When folks say, so what does this really mean? It's not just, oh, we're changing every word in the plan. We actually don't want to change every word in the plan. We don't want to go back to 0, right? We have a strong plan. We feel really good about that plan. That plan was made from this really strong community effort, but then we also did a ton of engagement to get to this plan and what it says. And so what we want to do as part of this update is say, where are we on the data, right? Where are we on the progress and like what we said we would do? Where are we with our municipal operations, right? So there are community actions in that plan. There's also municipal actions, right? That says the city of Flagstaff will do this for its energy, right? Or its fleet of vehicles, right? We have a little bit more control there, right? It also requires a lot of investment. And so where are we there? We want to do an equity scan. We want to check in on equity. How are we doing in implementing equity across the plan? Then we want to think about resilience and adaptation. This relates in some ways to community conversations that we've had where folks say, I don't see enough resilience and adaptation in this plan. I don't see enough that we're talking about how we prepare for wildfire, right? How we prepare for flooding. And so we want to say, how do we make that more clear? How do we help people see that in the plan? And then we want to do a redesign. And I'll talk a little bit about why we want to do that, but that's just really, once we're doing all this, how do we present this in a professional way? Accessibility is incredibly important in terms of like, are people able to access the plan? Are they able to understand what's in it? Do they know what's in it? Do they feel good about it? Do they feel like it's a community plan? And so that all has a lot to do with design. Sometimes it also has to do with the content, but hopefully we take care of the content in the first items above. So now I'm going to go through just kind of our goals with this update. You'll see that those 6 areas really reflect these goals in a lot of ways, and I am not there on this screen. Sorry, it's new format for me. Okay, so it's been 4 years since adoption now, next month. And so what does that progress look like? What's been easy? What's been hard, right? Are we ahead of the game in some places? Are we not in other places? We want to improve community understanding of the carbon neutrality plan. That is something we've been working on for 4 years. We want to take this opportunity to really push on that even more and say, as we're redoing this, what would help you understand the carbon neutrality plan? I say this a lot. The climate action is not, for one division of the city, right? If we relied on the climate team to get there, or the sustainability office, or frankly, just the city of Flagstaff to get there, we'll never get there, right? This depends deeply on our partners across the city. It depends deeply on residents, depends deeply on businesses. It depends deeply on federal and state policy, right? This is a everybody sort of thing. And so what we want to do is make sure that the community understands their role in it and how they can move it forward. Elevate adaptation priorities. So this came from, we had a conversation with council last year. We heard from a number of community members that they did not think that adaptation was a high enough priority in the plan. And what really came of that, I talked about the 3 goals of this plan. It's mitigation or reducing emissions, adaptation or resilience, and equity. So it is one of our 3 goals, but people aren't seeing that. So that's a problem we want to work through. So how do we help people see adaptation as a high priority in that plan? But also, how do we point to existing plans and other work of the city? And I'll talk a little bit more about that. We want to understand or advance understanding within the city of Flagstaff municipality. We want folks within the fleet department to be able to know exactly where in the carbon neutrality plan they should look for guidance, right? Same with our folks in engineering, same with our folks in water. Right now, City of Flagstaff actions are pretty spread throughout the plan. And so we really want to advance that understanding. And then finally, we want to expand the implementation of community equity goals. We want to do better on equity. We've had 4 years to get our feet under us, and now we want to say, how are we prioritizing and elevating equity in our actions? In terms of data, so and again, this is the first of those 6 areas. So right now, the plan looks at both sort of past and current greenhouse gas emissions for the entire community. And then it looks at projections. And says based on what we know, based on where we are today, based on trend lines, but also based on what we know about policy changes that may happen, this is where our projections are going to go. And so this is going to be an opportunity to update those. It's pretty basic stuff in terms of like, yeah, of course, we're having a new plan. We want to update this. I wanted to show you all just a little bit of what that will look like. So this is what we call the wedge graph. And this shows that, we started, the plan passed in 2021, but you generally try to look about 5 years back to look at your baseline emissions. And so we use 2016 as our baseline emissions years. This black line is the first line to look at because that just shows what our business as usual. So how will our emissions grow if we do not act? And so that's that line. Everything below that is a reduction, right? This graph shows a very standard constant trend, right? From our baseline emissions in 2016 to 2030. What we know in actuality is that, first of all, we didn't pass this plan until now, right, till 2021. And then we know that our emissions will not decrease in an even way, right? What we'll see is it's much more jagged. And frankly, a lot of the work that we do doesn't have emissions reductions until later on, right? The city of Flagstaff passed a new building code in 2019. We're only starting to see some of those gains now, right? Because you only see those gains with every unit that's built in the city in terms of emission savings. And so what we will do is we'll sort of reconfigure this graph, both to say where our emissions have been from 2021 to 2025, but then we'll also say this is what the reductions we think will look like. We know that this graph is not super easy to understand, and so we actually are going to probably reconfigure this and how we talk about it. People now talk about things like a carbon budget that just makes a much better sort of visual for how to do this. So, but I wanted to just kind of visualize what we mean when we say updating the data, updating the projections in the plan.
This graph, and as you say, there needs to be some adjustment on it. But what I'm understanding it to do is you've broken down the various aspects of things that contribute to carbon exposure, et cetera.
Yes.
And so waste is a small part of it. Carbon dioxide removal, of course, is a goal, but that's a large part of what the problem is the carbon dioxide. Is that what I'm understanding?
So thank you, and I'm really glad you asked that. So this is, when we get to 2030, our emissions will be here. And what this sort of shows is where our reductions came from. And so our reductions are actually only about half of our emissions. So by 2030, what the goals in the carbon neutrality plan state is that in 2030, we will have reduced our emissions by about 46%. And then we will actually offset the rest of it with carbon dioxide removal. And so we will be removing the carbon dioxide out of the air. That is carbon dioxide removal. That's actually over 50% of our reductions. And so that is sort of makes up the gap, if that makes sense. And so we'll have this many reductions in waste, this many reductions from vehicle miles traveled or transportation, electric vehicles, energy in the residential sector, city of Flagstaff buildings, et cetera.
So do we actually measure the amount of carbon dioxide in the air, or are we calculating based on things that we've seen happen?
So there are people that measure carbon dioxide in the air. That is not within the city of Flagstaff's capabilities. But we do an annual emissions inventory. We've done it since about 2007. And so we have really strong data in some places. We know exactly APS actually provides how much electricity is delivered to the entire community. So that we have really strong data on. We also know what their energy mix looks like throughout the year, right? And so they say, we give you this much electricity, then we calculate. Right now, Arizona's or APS's electric mix is about 51% clean electricity, so no emissions electricity, right? So you do that, you factor it in. We utilize a third-party software to do that. That's nationally used, nationally verified, et cetera. There are folks who are moving into a space of doing actual physical measurements of emissions, and some at NAU actually, and then we're working with them to try and see what that data looks like, so that we can use it. However, we know that emissions that are in Flagstaff are not the whole picture of Flagstaff's emissions, right? Because
Train passes through.
the train passes through, but also in terms of electricity, right? Some of our electricity comes from natural gas that's burned, in other places in Arizona, et cetera, right? And so it is not an exact science. It is generally a projection. There are, our emissions calculations go up and down as techniques change, right? As we get better data, et cetera. But yeah, we are absolutely measuring this every year to the best of our ability.
How do we remove carbon dioxide from the air?
Great question. So that is an evolving industry, an emerging industry. We have been working, as the city of Flagstaff has been working to try to develop more carbon dioxide removal opportunities within our region. And so to that end, we have started what's called the Four Corners Carbon Coalition. We're working with a number of different cities throughout the Four Corners region to try to create carbon dioxide removal opportunities. So it won't be the city of Flagstaff, but what we are seeking is who can we purchase essentially carbon dioxide removal from, right? Who can we partner with to do it? There's a lot of different ways to do it. There's something called direct air capture. ASU has really been pioneering this, where you're actually pulling carbon dioxide out of the air with these giant fan things. There are other ways to do it, like with concrete. We've actually worked with a company in town that is working on pulling carbon into their concrete block light and putting it into their concrete blocks. It's really cool. Yeah, it's kind of incredible. Blocklight has been a really cool partner in trying to do that.
What was the name of that company?
Blocklight. They're the block seller in town.
They win the Innovate Waste.
They were awarded Innovate Waste funding at some point, I believe. And so there are different ways to it. You can also do it through landscape, right? I mean, trees remove carbon dioxide from the air, right? Yeah, but that's sort of like the baseline, right? That's the status quo. And so it's like, we need to do more than that. And so, but there are ways to do it through sustainable agriculture practices that really, build up the soil so that it.
So it's like 10,000 of those planters in a greenhouse.
I do not know. Probably something, but I'm not sure if it's enough. Yeah.
Side houses.
Yeah, but still pulling out carbon dioxide. So, yeah, it's complicated and we're working on the industry, but we're very much in a place where we need to be seeing more kind of advancement in that field and as we go. So, yeah. Yes.
When I lived in Tucson, the EPA did a lot of evaluation of air quality and carbon monoxide distribution, blah, blah, blah. Do we get any of that data in the north too? Does the EPA give us information?
So Tucson, and I'm actually less familiar with Tucson situations. In many large cities, they are out of attainment with the Clean Air Act. And so because of that, they have additional monitoring. They also have additional regulations. They also have additional,
For cars.
the emissions for cars, et cetera. But we are not out of attainment, which is great because it means our air is cleaner and healthier to breathe. But it also means we don't have all that extra monitoring, all of those extra things. So it's sort of an interesting chicken and egg scenario there.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding the graph.
Mhm.
Is this graph in the last carbon or the last CNP?
Yep.
So this is kind of a projection from when it was written last?
Yep.
Okay,
In 2021, this is stayed for the whole time.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Is it accurate to where we are now?
No, as I said, not at all. Like our emission reductions will not look anything in that constant sort of line, right? And they didn't start in 2016, right? This sort of is just a projection of like, yeah, what it looks like at the end of the day, but it's not clear. Our emissions have increased since we passed the carbon neutrality plan, because that is the trend. That is the trend across the world. And so again, as I said, actions that we take have a long leeway in terms of when you actually see those emissions. So they've decreased some years too. So I shouldn't fully say they've increased.
But we're also seeing increases in electric vehicle capacity, things of that sort, charging stations. So where this community can be doing things, we are at least looking at, I guess what I wanted to say was that there's divisions in that help us get where we want to go if we are able to invest in that perspective.
Exactly. So I actually have a couple more graphs that might help this conversation. This is the graph that I prefer to use to have this conversation. And so this is, let's see, so 2021 is why I say our emissions increase. Right now I have 2021. I do not have the 2024 numbers on here yet because it takes us about a summer to do an inventory. It takes a lot of time. And so our emissions did increase since 2021. However, they were down in 2021 because of the pandemic. And so, but this basically shows what our emissions are now, what they have been, and then where we need to go. And so the first top of that is emission reductions. And then basically carbon dioxide removal means we need to remove the emissions that are left, right? After we've reduced them as far as we possibly can.
We think we underestimated in the first place or that we actually increased?
In terms of our emissions?
Uh-huh.
In the first, you mean in terms of our 2021?
Right.
So we used the same methodology for 2021 and 2023. I believe those are pandemic, right? Folks are driving a lot less, consuming a lot less. But it's, again, it's not an exact science. It's hard to say. Come on, all right. And then community emissions per capita. So this is just another way to look at it. You'll see that, we generally see the same exact trend that we have. Emissions went down in 2021, then they rose in 2023. But we do need to reduce our emissions per capita down quite a bit to reach our carbon neutrality. So, sorry?
I did buy my hybrid in 2019.
Maybe that was you.
There you go.
In terms of progress updates, so this is a little bit different than the straight emissions data. This is about how things are going in terms of where we're headed. This is the timeline again. Again, 2021 was when we passed the plan. Now, I apparently made this graph for the first time in 2024 and pulled the wrong slide. So you'll have to give me grace there. But we really use this slide. Oh, we did do a regional plan major revision. So we've revised the regional plan after adopting the carbon neutrality plan. And then we actually revised the carbon neutrality plan in 2022. I promised I would talk about that again. What we did during that process was really pull the adaptation subjects that were in the 2018 Climate Action Adaptation Plan and pulled them into the carbon neutrality plan. For a while, we were using the carbon neutrality plan for mitigation and then the CAT for adaptation. And we said, no, we just want one plan. So that's what we did. That was where we brought in water, forest health, economic vitality, health and safety.
App stand for?
Sorry, climate action. So, in terms of our timeline though, we just wanted to kind of talk about, here we are, CMP revision 2. Kind of like what we see in terms of the two pieces, right? There's sort of the foundations you lay as part of a plan, as part of a planning process. That has been most of our work so far. And then you start to see the results eventually, right? And so we need a lot of things in order to see the emissions reductions that we need. That's technology change. One of those things is like cold climate heat pumps, right? Technology has changed drastically, really in the last decade. And so really it's sort of like technology adoption is the thing we really need there. But there's other things like electric vehicle charging and batteries are changing every day, right? Like that's probably the better example for this timeline. So you see technology change and then you see technology adoption. The last CAT project that I know you all have heard a lot about, that is really about those code and policy changes, right? We need deep code and policy changes in our community to allow density, right? From both an equity standpoint as well as an emissions and resilience standpoint. We have to make those changes and then we have to actually see development that's reflective of those code and policy changes. I mentioned the building code as well, which is really part of that story, right? You adopt the building code, but then you only see the benefits of it with every single building that goes in, with every unit that goes in, et cetera. So this is really just to visualize how we have multiple sort of steps in this. It's sort of laying those foundations, getting in those behavior change campaigns, you know, getting the industries developed for carbon dioxide, right? Before you can really start to see these changes. I wouldn't pay too much attention to the years here, but it really just is like, there are many, many steps to see these changes. So we'll talk about that as part of the progress update in the plan and just talk about what have we seen, what changes have been helpful, where are we not moving fast enough. And finally, this is sort of the meat and potatoes of the progress update. This really talks about what have we done so far. And so within the carbon neutrality plan, I showed before the sort of 15 different target areas where we're working. Every target area has, oh gosh, between 20 and probably 30 or 40 different actions. And so this is really a list of those actions. What have we started? What have we completed? What have we not started? We're about half and half. We're a little bit more than half. And so we're really proud of that we've started that. It is a 10-year plan. And a lot of them will take 10 years, frankly, and right, maybe even longer. And so, but this is just with each of those things, that is where kind of our status lies in terms of what's done, what's in progress, what's started. When we update the carbon neutrality plan, what we'll do is we'll probably remove those actions that we've done, right? We'll keep the ones that we haven't done yet, and then we'll add other things. There are other actions that come up. Really importantly in the carbon neutrality plan, we did not have a prescriptive list. We sort of said, these are opportunities for action. A 9-year plan is far too fast to be able to like plan out everything that you're going to do. The industry changes too fast. The federal landscape changes too fast, right? For us to think that we would know everything that we would do over the next 9 years. And so it is truly not prescriptive, but we said, this is where we could act. These are opportunities for action. This is what we might do. So that will be part of that update. Well, too far. In terms of municipal operations plan, I mentioned before, municipal actions that the city of Flagstaff will take. Maybe that's for our buildings. Maybe that's for our vehicle fleet. Those are spread all throughout the plan because they're in the electric vehicle chapter. They're in the solar chapter. They're in the energy efficiency chapter, right? That is not the easiest way to go about it for our city partner. Right. And so what we're going to do is kind of carve out a part of the carbon neutrality plan, create that municipal operations plan, say, this is what the city of Flagstaff is going to do for our vehicles, for our buildings, et cetera. Right. Just to make it really easy and make it really crystal clear what we're doing with those things that we have the most control over. This was just a good lessons learned for us. Make it a little easier for our coworkers. We also are currently going through a climate action leadership series with our peers in other divisions. So we have been meeting with every division in the city. I think there's 14. We've been meeting with them to talk about, yeah, it takes a lot, it takes months to schedule it, but, when we meet with them individually, but we're talking about, their sort of work and how it relates to the carbon neutrality plan. And so we started with really just broad questions. What are your priorities? Where do you align with the carbon neutrality plan, et cetera? The next questions that we're asking now are, you know, what does your work look like in 50 years, right? What does your work look like when we have more and more smoky days? We have a lot of workers who work outside. Talking to our risk manager already, they are working on how do we get electrolytes to our workers? And this is something we're already working on in Flagstaff. So you can imagine how other places are working on it that are much more hot, but we're already there. And so what we're trying to do is help every single division in the city think about what does life look like with climate change, right? In 25 years, in 50 years, et cetera. Our projections are that Flagstaff is going to be 5 to 10 degrees hotter in the next 50 to 100 years. And so how does that affect the city operations, right? And so those are the conversations we're having now. And what we'll do is we'll take lessons learned from that and also put those in the municipal operations plan. Finally, we'll do an equity scan. I mentioned this before. We really just want to better integrate equity in each target area. We did not have exact equity plans for renewable energy, let's say, right? We didn't have exact equity plans for electric vehicles. What we want to do is make those more specific. We want to make them more, we didn't feel like we had enough time to really give it its due when creating the first carbon neutrality plan. And so we want to talk more about what does this really mean for our community members that maybe they have low income, maybe they have mobility issues, right? What does this mean? What does it mean if you do not have the ability to drive and we need to evacuate, right? How do we think about all of our different community members in all of their different walks of life and think about how either they're participating in mitigation or resilience building, but also how we're responding to emergency events, right? How do we think about our seniors? How do we think about folks who speak different languages, et cetera? So that's the equity scan. We will work with the Equity Climate Advisory Group for that. And I promise I will stop talking soon. So resilience and adaptation connections. I spoke a little bit about this. The city has a resilience and preparedness study. It was actually our first, very official climate document at the city of Flagstaff. You'll note it doesn't have climate in the name. And we published it in 2012, and that was pretty early for us. And what they did in that study is we worked with a national group that was working with cities on this, and we sat down with each division and talked through some of those things, some of those questions that I mentioned before that we're talking with all the divisions about. We're basically going to update that through this process with the divisions and combine it into this plan. We don't need another plan. We just want it all to be together. And so that's really this. This also responds to the concerns that we're not doing enough on resilience. We're not doing enough on preparedness. That work is hard, and we need to get better at explaining it. I am 100% certain of that. But the sustainability office does not necessarily run our fire preparedness preparation, right? For good reason. No one wants that, right? We're not the firefighters, right? We're not, working on where the aircraft is based, right? Same with flooding, right? And so this is really work where we rely on partners. It's also work that the city has been doing work on for decades. And so a lot of people feel that the plan doesn't talk enough about that. And the reason for that is because it's very well defined in our wildfire plans, right? And it's very well defined in our stormwater plans. But what we need to do a better job at is connecting to that existing work and connecting to those existing plans. So that will be a really big part of this. It's just better telling that story, because the city isn't fantastic at telling it right now about who are all these other folks that are working on these things. Because yes, this is the climate plan, and yes, those things are related to climate. And we've been working on those things for decades and have really strong work to talk about there. So this is really just about better illustrating that work. And this is, I kind of already got here, but the Climate Action Leadership Workshop. So this is just where we're saying, what do you need to adapt to climate impacts, right? What resources do you have now? What do you need to adapt? How is climate change affecting you, in 25 years and 75 years? Redesign. This is maybe my favorite part because the current climate plan, I designed it. And I am not a designer and certainly didn't have time for it then. And so it's in a Word document. and it can be better. And like, we've heard that from the community, and it's why a lot of the community doesn't necessarily understand the plan, because it's not professionally designed. And we know there's good value in that. So we have contracted with the company to help with this part. Yeah, it's really exciting because it's really overdue. And I think just that professional design will be great. We are also working on an online dashboard that will better explain the carbon neutrality plan. And so that will just kind of go along with all of this sort of reorganization and thinking about content, but also just getting it online in a more accessible way. Right now it's online in that it's a PDF, and we also have many, many different web pages that talk about it, but it's not the best way to do it. And so luckily we're calling in the professionals to help with that. So I think, process. So I would like to begin providing quarterly updates to the Sustainability Commission. We really see you all as kind of the check and kind of feedback mechanism for this plan. And so, you know, I'm going to be getting with Tia to do that. I think we're back next in August. And so we will have a lot more to tell you then. This is really just as we start this work. It's a little hard to find time at the moment, but we think we're going to move forward a lot in the summer. And then in the fall, we are going to start to have a few community workshops. Those workshops are going to be actually kind of a recall to the first workshops we did when we started our first climate plan of like, what are you worried about, right? Like what opportunities do you see? What vulnerabilities do you see in our community, et cetera? And so we're deeply excited for those. Next month, we're also going to start Climate and Coffee. This is something that we did starting in 2017, where just folks can come talk to us about the plan. It's sort of an open meeting if folks have questions. And then we will start to do really topic specific deep dive. So we'll have a deep dive event on transportation. We'll have one on electricity, et cetera. And then we are aiming for spring 2026 to bring a draft to council. But as I said, I'll be back here quarterly to make sure that we are keeping you all in the loop, and you'll see the draft before council. So that's my real request to y'all. Of course.
This professional group that you're going to take to do the design.
Yes.
Are they going to be garnering input from you within this kind of framework? They may get the community workshop, she'll be saying some things like, I don't understand this part, so that'll go to the design
Yes.
people.
Exactly. The company that we're working with, I'm really thrilled. Knock on wood, it's going through the process now, but I mean, we've gone through procurement, but they are the company that actually worked on the first climate action adaptation plan with us. And they did so much in that process with that design, with hearing from the community, et cetera. So I'm really thrilled for that.
To overlap this or with the county, you know, the communities around us or around Flagstaff, because we're not alone. I mean, we're kind of on a little island here, but.
We are not alone. The county has been involved. You know, we work really closely with the county's staff. They do not have sustainability staff at the moment, but they do have a green building program, really strong sustainable building program. And yeah, we're excited to work with them. They were involved in the first, well, really the development of both climate plans. And so we'll keep them in the loop on this. You know, we're excited for the county to move forward and set climate goals, but at the moment they have not set climate goals. And so, you know, we're very much aware that when we talk about Flagstaff, we are talking about the Flagstaff region, right? Anyone can participate in any of our public events. They can give us input on the plan, et cetera. You know, somebody that lives in Donny Park or in Kachina Village, they are part of Flagstaff, right? So we don't draw lines in that way. But in terms of them having their own climate plan, that's really for, you know, the Board of Supervisors.
I would say about 4 years ago, I participated in some Northern Arizona commission groups that were things like the Forestry Service, the Water Service. It's all Northern Arizona people from the state. And I'm thinking, I went to these several times. They had farmers there, they had ranchers there.
Cool.
They had people that dealt with the Black-footed ferret. I mean, there are all kinds of people there talking about all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I don't think we got you there. I think we need to get sustainability to go to these meetings.
Yeah, who puts them on?
I will look it up.
Okay.
I will remember the guy that was in charge of it. The first experience I had was at the Northern Arizona Museum. They had a big, large group that got together and they had Grand Canyon there.
Oh,
They
cool.
had parks people there. They had people from the not architectural, but excuse me, from the state that had to do with for reviewing the land and making sure that valued anthropological issues aren't resolved. I mean, that aren't infected. So there's a lot of different people there and they kept doing these like biannual meetings. They're really very interesting. And I'm thinking that you need to go to this or somebody from your.
That's great.
I'll find out who they are.
That's great.
Another meeting.
One more meeting for you to go to.
Those are fun town
Yeah.
meetings. Okay, good. So that is what I have. I know that I went through a lot, and so I am happy to go back to any part of this if there's anything you all would want to talk about more. Mostly I'll just go back to sort of the summary of changes because I think that might be.
Are there any questions from commissioners? Would you like to ask questions?
Something, quite a question, but, have you guys thought about with the design team at all, like integration with AI systems? Just because you were saying that you want to make it easier for like city people to understand and the community. I just think it's so dense, it would be useful to have it kind of an AI that understands the whole thing. So you could go ask it a question specifically, like, where does my
It's Alexa.
job with this intertwine with the carbon neutrality plan, something like that?
I love that, like a bot that was trained specifically on the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. We've not started working with the design team, yet,
Okay.
but I imagine they're there, but if not, I think it's great. I think that, we also want to be mindful of the energy costs and water costs of every time every question's asked, but, it's probably gonna happen anyway, so I think it's a great idea. And because that's exactly it, right? Like, how do we make this more accessible so that people can find out what they need and what technology can be used that will get it there.
How do we let people know just what they can actually do and what impact it has? I know the recycling's been something going on in our own house because it turns out there's a lot less things that are recyclable than we thought. And now we're burning a bunch of energy, sending it down to landfills. And, so there's things that I think people think are making a difference that maybe aren't making the difference they thought they were, and are certainly looking for things that could.
Yeah. With then you mean like with the data behind it?
Yeah, where we can really support and know and say, gamify it if possible, bring us 27 cans and, get a carbon credit, sucker, it's.
I love it.
But there, I think there's not really a lot of very specific, or at least, what can I do information out there on these things that, big plans and big problems, but, big hopelessness if I don't have something I can do and does something.
Thanks so much for that, Tom. I think it's a really important thing. We've talked about that as part of the dashboard, right? Really focusing on like, here's actions you can take. If you're interested in energy, here are those ones, and better connecting. We have a webpage now that says, here's all the actions you can take, but it's not interactive, right? It doesn't really help people get there in terms of connections to the plan. So thank you. I will take that as a really good suggestion.
Any other questions or contributions? We look forward to these upcoming coffees and meetings and things like that. They sound very exciting.
Yes, we'll be in touch on
And you
that.
did a lovely presentation. I thank you so much for your input and the information and all the work you do. Oh my gosh, we can just see all the work behind all this. Thank you. Bless your heart.
Thank you all for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Got a compliment from Austin too.
Thanks, all.
So is there an April 2025 monthly division report? Pull that up. Feel the little plug.
Oh, of course. Thanks to you. Although now I know.
Again, thank you very much.
I'm gonna grab water. I'll be right back. Bye.
So this monthly division report is something that we send to like our city manager's office, council. Again, we're kind of restarting sharing these again as a request to keep you all more looped in about all of the very different things that we do each month across our 2 sections. And well, this is not in the most beautiful format because we prepare it in kind of or format. I apologize for that. I'm just gonna walk through some of these key highlights. So we all know what we're up to.
Missed the drop-off day for a bit. I'm so bummed.
What?
I missed it. I love drop-off day.
I'm surprised you didn't get a notification. Yeah.
Obviously.
I know you volunteered for that. So in April, we held a youth climate teach-in in partnership with our Youth Climate Leadership Academy, which is a group of high school students. And this, Jenny and I were there, and it was a really powerful opportunity to speak with people of all ages, really, about different topics and things that people are working on in town and beyond. And it was a diverse array of speakers, from professors to community organizers to folks at NEU, clubs at NEU. So
Sort of a turnout.
it was pretty small, but I wouldn't say it detracted from the quality of the conversations and the impact. We had our first annual of 2 that we do annually, drop-off day. So the next one will be in October. And we assisted 535 households in diverting over 18,000 pounds of waste from the landfill, getting it into the right place. If you missed this event and have items that you want to dispose of, you can always swing by the Hazardous Products Center out of the landfill, or check out recyclebycity.com/Flagstaff and look up those items that you're really curious about. And there'll be some suggestions on that website about how you can dispose. And we do always look for volunteers. I think it's actually okay though that you weren't at this one because I heard we had tons of volunteers. So
Oh, good, I'm glad.
it works out. Yeah.
I wasn't missed.
I know, we brought stuff to it.
Yeah,
They made us
take that.
take all our paint cans. It's like, wait a minute.
And if they want to actually take the paint cans, I think, because they don't have the right license to drive it back.
I got it sitting out drying out now,
Yes.
turning into a sludge or something.
Take that one out yourself, the HVAC, yeah. Some of the highlights from the climate action section from April, the monthly climate resilience project conversation was in partnership with the Azalea project. It's about beyond recycling, and featured a couple local businesses, including Snow Mountain River and Peak Sense, that prioritize waste prevention and reduction. The Flagstaff Resilience Hubs hosted various workshops at the Murdoch Center and the Market of Dreams, 2 of the hubs, including a storytelling workshop and some emergency management workshops. Shout out to our environmental literacy corps members, who also led an asset mapping workshop with Sunnyside residents to map out the people, places, and resources that make their community strong. We'll probably be hosting more of these events in the future. All right, climate team engaged with over 600 folks in April. The Equity Climate Advisory Group also provided feedback on the micro-mobility share program that you all heard about last month as well. And there they emphasized the need for equity-centered design, safe and welcome infrastructure, and more. Let's see, Jenny spoke to this, but we're going through an internal climate action engagement process with the other divisions, and we're in that phase 2 of this, the 4 phases.
Oh, no.
It was
4 phases.
So received 40 pieces of electric lawn equipment at the sustainability office. So people like donating things that are electric lawn equipment.
No, so this is actually, so Sustainability Office got 2 cold climate heat pumps from the same grant.
Oh, I see.
But PROS, the Parks, Recs, and Open Space and Events Division received 40 pieces of brand new electric lawn equipment to replace old and aging natural gas. Or gas.
Used for electric snow plows. No shovels.
It's mostly like, I believe a lawnmower, the,
Trying to get rid of my
Weed
electric
whacker.
snow shovel route. That's what I'm trying to do.
yeah.
Donate it to somebody.
But we're really excited about this because the air quality benefits in our parks, right, where there are kids, right, are amazing, right? And also, for the workers, right? Like in terms of fumes, and handling, there's a lot less vibration, right? And so they say that especially, I mean, we do not have an electric forklift, but you can imagine if you're a forklift operator, right? The vibration and so it's really cool aspect of all the benefits of electrification for those.
Electric Zamboni.
I'm not sure, I don't think we have it yet. I think we're working on
Okay, cool. Mary, you could ask the Coco Op, they have the tool library.
Oh, that's true. That'd be
They-
a good thing.
they might. The home weatherization energy rebate program is officially closed for the year and has provided nearly $150,000 in assistance to community members who completed energy and cost saving home upgrades. And so we just ran out of money for the program. There's definitely more need. And so the program will reopen on July 1st for projects completed on or after July 1st as well.
Fiscal year.
Yeah.
There's like continued funding for that.
Yes, yeah, there is. And at the next meeting, Nicole is going to dive more into specific budget line items. So can't remember exactly how much it is, but yes, there is more funding for next year. Let's see. Sustainability has been working with other city staff from like building safety and the fire and water services to update the city's building and fire codes. It's a 6-year update cycle. And so staff are currently researching code updates and working on community engagement. Innovate Group Business Pitch Competition happened and from Jay Jones, the winner with Tech Genie. Staff and our partners recruited 10 local businesses and nonprofits to participate in the current Great Business Boot Camp, which is ongoing, which it sounds like Jay is actually also a part of. And so that is working on identifying ways that folks can like make their business practices more sustainable. And yeah, lots of different topics, speakers, there are support and economic vitality support. We will reduce the cost for businesses and nonprofits to $100.
They all look good, but this looks really good.
The photos always help it.
Yeah.
Yep. That ADU model plan design contest closed and the winners were announced. And the plan library will go live online now in July with approximately 20 pre-approved plans. So that's to make, the planning process easier for folks and ideally like less costly as well. We joined FUSD to celebrate 2 new, brand new electric school buses and to recognize the school bus drivers on that same day as well. Happened to be on Earth Day, and it was really fun. We rode our electric e-bike fleet way out there. It was like beyond the movie theater. I think I rode like 20 miles on the e-bike today.
It's not an easy way to get across town.
They keep the school buses off in the corners.
Because it just went down the
66.
down the huts. Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah.
Wait a minute, you said you went down the Futs?
Yeah.
You didn't go down the street, you went down the sideline thing then, the little trail that's been developed.
Parallel to the street. Yeah.
That's.
Yeah. Thanks to the city for providing us e-bikes. Let's see. Micro mobility share program. I'll mention this in the to and from. There is another survey if you all want to take it as individual community members that's open. So that program is just continuing to evaluate feedback and continue those discussions to get to the next steps to bring back to city council. Or did that already get brought back to city council? Not yet?
It did.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's looking
This is April.
wondrous.
Yeah, July 1st is when it will be.
Sweet. All right. At the end of this month, there's an electric vehicle ride and drive event coming right up. So on Saturday, May 31st is the one with the public, in partnership with Northern Arizona University and Drive Electric Arizona. And so different community members have offered up their EV vehicles to let people test them out.
Wow.
And there's some really cool different types of vehicles, and there's some Rivians, other cool ones. I don't have the full list.
Where is this gonna take place?
Somewhere on NAU's campus.
Let's say that.
And I
Northern Arizona.
No, I can follow up with more information too, or,
I can put it in the chat, actually.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, but we can follow up too. Tell your friends, anybody can go. It's open to the public. I believe it's down like right off I-40, in that parking lot there. I know it is, I'm sorry. Right off McConnell.
The glass recycle is?
I don't know that. Yes, I would imagine there's glass recycling.
Is that the like most south large?
Yes, large lot. Yep, right off
Yeah.
that.
So these are private vehicles? They're not
Yes.
like through dealers and whatnot?
Correct. Personally owned. There's a organization that takes care of all the liability, things like that. Yeah, it's a really, really
Are you
interesting,
part of the liability?
thing. So yeah, it's NAU campus parking lot,
On there.
P62A. So
I'm out
all
of town,
kinds of-
otherwise I would be there.
I don't see my car on
I'm not taking Bolt to Oregon, so someone could take it.
Why are you selling it?
No, I just won't be in town, so I
Oh.
can't show off our
Oh, I see.
2017 Bolt, but
Oh.
yeah, here's a list of the vehicles registered.
Yeah, it's gonna be really cool.
I want to try that Ford Mustang.
I just wanted to try that.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see that.
I think it was fire engine red.
Yeah, I'll be sure to send more information. The city's receiving over $40,000 in federal tax credits for 5 electric vehicles purchased in 2023, and are also filing for additional tax credits for EVs purchased in 2024.
Well, that I won.
Get it in there fast.
Yes,
Oh, for 5.
They're gonna quit.
Wow. You have 5 vehicles for 40K.
tax credits.
Tax
Tax
credits.
Ah,
That's the
Federal
government.
10% of the,
pays for one.
so times that by 70.
Youth climate action, we touched on that a little bit, but there's also some other really cool things happening. There is a sustainability officer program. The city of Phoenix has actually been supporting these folks. They're paid high school students just working in their schools. And one of the really cool projects got elevated somehow to partnership with NACRD Pepsi, who's helping revitalize their school's recycling program. And so this is just such a collaborative effort with so many partners and building skills for these paid high schoolers too.
I have a vision of them walking around with little badges and complaining.
Yes.
I've seen.
Let's see. There's also the Climate Action Challenge, which funds small grants to local school and organizations advancing sustainability and youth empowerment. And so those 3 projects were the East Side Flagstaff Library, Mount Eldon Middle School, and Willow Bend Environmental Education Center. I think at least the one I can remember was the East Flagstaff Library is going to do like a mural to our neighborhood engagement and volunteer services. They engaged with over 900 people in April through events, volunteer opportunities, interviews, presentations, etc. Here's some data from the community stewards. Just highlight a couple. There's 20 bags of trash and invasive species removed, 15 different cleanups. There's also a request to clean up a large illegal dump site along Cedar Avenue that our stewards went out and addressed quickly. So shout out to all of our volunteers there. There's some new bat boxes installed by an Eagle Scout troop. We also hosted our first stewardship hubs, which allowed community members to go on their own time, pick up supplies at these different hubs and go clean up around them. So that was the week prior to Earth Day. And the locations included the Visitor Center, the Murdoch Center, and the Sustainability Office. And in partnership with the Wildland Fire and Public Works folks, We completed the first pilot pine needle drop off in Railroad Springs neighborhood and began the service in University Heights. As someone who walks around Railroad Springs quite a bit, I can tell you it was very successful, and it like there was people out like every single day I walked by cleaning up their pine needles and utilizing that service. So really cool.
Where did the pine needles go?
To the landfill. And then we also help run the city volunteer program, which provides paid time off if we hit a threshold for volunteer hours as employees. So this just highlights that year to date, employees have volunteered 476 hours. On the waste prevention side of things, the free residential food scrap drop-off program diverted almost 4,000 pounds of food waste from the landfill. And that's almost 0.7 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions.
And that's gonna make a big difference in your graph eventually, I think.
Keep expanding it, yeah. The Recycle by City website, just a reminder, that's a great resource if you have any questions about how you can dispose of items. You know, waste bin audits at city facilities to make sure at the city facilities we're, you know, burn things out, recycling correctly, etc. See the community garden program engages 75 community gardeners through plot registration. So that means all of the garden plots have been filled at our 3 community gardens at Bonito, Southside, and Hell Jackson.
Half of the counselor.
And when do we get to harvest plums from the,
We're probably still like a year out from the
oh, actually,
community fruit orchard.
Yeah, that was like.
I really go check. Yeah.
They said that their trees were still like little baby trees.
Yeah. And then a new community garden is also being established at McAllister Ranch. This one's going to be run slightly different than our existing ones, in that we're actually like partnering with another local group to help run it. But more on that as it evolves. And then just a reminder, we have backyard animal keeping permits. They're free. Goats, chickens, etc.
Careful with your guts.
Just a recap of what you all did last month. Just include a recap about your agenda items and when we meet. Social media. We have over 7,900 people.
Was our ad hoc committee meeting on that list?
Yeah, with,
Thank you.
What was it?
Our ad hoc committee.
Oh,
oh wait, that would be from May, but.
Oh, sorry, from Monday.
No, that's okay. Yep. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. So that was the presentation. Sure, busy bees.
Yes.
yeah, just a quick, so
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the group at the last meeting where we gave them a chance to reuse their funds for one of their people. What's up with them and who's there?
Oh, yeah, Murdoch Center, Southside Community Center. I mean, they were very grateful, but I haven't heard any other updates.
Any other needs or any?
Yeah, I know, like, some of the funds, like, got slightly diverted from their garden programming, but, like, our community garden folks can help support in other ways. And like Sam Wiley, who is our like resilience hub specialist, is also working closely with them to support them in other ways. So I think ideally just to like offset any like impacts that would have had, but the goal is also to have, basically they weren't now going to, not grammatically correct. Part of their original budget had been to, you know, support like paying an outside intern, and now they'll just pay their like full-time staff member who lost funding through the termination of the EPA grant.
Good that we were able to do that. So the next agenda item is the June commission retreat. You have 15 minutes for that today.
Good stuff.
Okay, yes, might not even need that full time. So yeah, some other commissions do annual retreats, and I figured it would be an excellent opportunity for us to think strategically and talk about some of these items that have been on our future agenda item request list for a while. And also to just kind of like recap my time with you all, not just a recap, but just to kind of like try, yeah, celebrate a little bit.
Say goodbye.
Have a fun one, yeah. And so I have some proposed agenda item topics. Let me make this bigger. Here, these first two items are just kind of normal ones that we would bring to any regular June, like commission meeting. We're gonna approve the neighborhood sustainability grant material updates that the working group has been working on. They have met once and will meet again. Ordinance updates. That working group has not met yet. There's been a lot of people out on vacation on the river, and which is fine, but Nicole and I have a plan to make that happen, and so we will be in touch. It'll just be, it might be like 1-2 hour work session, heads down, figuring it out. And honestly, if that, doesn't happen by the June meeting, it's not the end of the world, but we're gonna aim for that still. And then a budget overview to give you all like a more inside look about what we requested, what got funded. And then mostly to review the draft plan and topics for the upcoming year and to prioritize them and figure out who you want in the room talking about them, what questions you have about those topics. And then how do we plan those out, while also knowing that we get requests in, like month of or couple months ahead. So yeah. Is there anything else you all would like to see on this retreat agenda?
When you're looking at the retreat, what's your time frame within a day's time? Is it a whole day? Is it a couple hours? Is it just commission meeting that you're just gonna focus on? Is a retreat for that one meeting, that 2 hour meeting?
I'm thinking like an longer, taking up the normal meeting time, but longer, probably like 3 hours, with like a dinner or something in there, or like heavy snacks too. I mean, I'm thinking at our office. It needs to be somewhere that folks can access. Does anyone have any other fun ideas?
Our clubhouse, our community has a clubhouse, we can go.
No.
I
Maybe.
don't think it's just any nicer than the sustainability office.
Well, that doesn't say much for your clubhouse. I'm
No,
sorry.
it doesn't, but there is beer
I mean,
club,
sustainability office is nice,
there's
but
a
it's
bar
not
not far, and food and stuff like that, so it has that advantage.
Okay, okay.
The
good
Murdoch
to know.
Center, I think, is free for city functions. Isn't it?
So, yeah, we need to double check.
Well, at one point, we contacted them
Oh, yeah.
for the Murdoch Center.
Oh.
When I contacted them, then they said, oh, if you're the city, then yeah, there's no charge.
Okay.
So, but I don't know if
Cool.
that's the same as us going to party.
Well, it is.
Well, if we invite them, then we're covered.
Yeah. Well, I guess if we're discussing that agenda items,
Yeah, we can see if they're available.
anyway, that's just one option.
And the date is kind of set, that's the day we're going.
Yeah, same regular day of the month.
Alright.
Yeah. And then, does anyone like have any preference? Like, ideally, we could start a little earlier and end a little later. But does anyone have any like strict conflicts or? Oh, Commissioner Carlson, my housing complex also has a nice clubhouse we can use. Okay. And yeah, I don't know, I need to double check what the requirements are for like a public meeting, what access we need to have, so.
I won't be able to make it.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm bummed to hear that, but it happens. Okay, so no initial reactions to
No, it was-
starting
it's
a
good
little
to me.
earlier?
Yeah.
than later? Okay. Okay, and then I also wanted to remind you all of the topics that we have had on the future agenda item request and that we prioritized in that survey. But the results were really mixed. And I want to provide an opportunity for you all to add more items to that list going into that meeting too. So, show you. So these were the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of general categories. Again, it was all over the place, which
I
is
was looking at
fine.
that one, it said Mary Growth, and I was to say, I don't think I'm getting any bigger, but I realized it's Lake Mary Growth.
Yeah, don't think we're gonna comment on any of that. So yeah, I would say, the top most interested one, was kind of tied. We had 6 respondents. I'm not sure who didn't respond, it was all anonymous. So city water pollution concerns, JW Powell Boulevard improvements and Lake Mary growth, recycling in Flagstaff. But you'll also see like for the JW Powell and Lake Mary growth, equal numbers said neutral and least interested. So city water pollution concerns, which I think none of us necessarily like knew exactly what that is or what it would be. So I think we just have like questions about like, are there any? Is there? Yeah. So, and then recycling and Flagstaff also tied with like 2 and 2 being most interested and least interested. And so
This is all for the 26th. You're talking about this for the retreat.
this is ideally at the retreat, we'll kind of plan out who we want to ask and when during the upcoming year we'll have these topics on the agenda and look at when we have neighborhood sustainability grant on the agenda. We know that for the year generally speaking, and then we'll put in like the CMP update kind of stuff too. And it'll have to be fluid too. We can only do our best, but yeah. So. Anyone have any other topics they would like to add to this or feel really strongly that, I mean, again, we're gonna have time to talk about this at the retreat too, so. But if you have any additional topics, throw them out there and we can put them on the list. Yeah.
But redevelopment of the Kinsey School, that'll be interesting to talk about.
Okay. Did that meeting happen?
I think it happened. I don't know what the result was.
The board voted unanimously to move forward with a mixed heat pump and gas system.
Oh, they did? Okay, that's good.
Well,
Was that the one that was being noisy or hearing about in the Northern Arizona Climate Action newsletters and stuff like that?
Well, I thought the presentation today about the carbon neutrality plan was very interesting, and I think I would like to see that. More conversation about that in the future. We need to immerse ourselves in fact.
Yeah, I'd like to try and figure out ways that, people can make a difference themselves. How do you make this a little more ground level? No.
I don't. You're not required to do anything today. We can do it another time. Well, that being said, we can move on to the to and from, excuse me.
Much grief, we end this meeting early.
Kind of my vision here. I'll give you the gift of time.
I feel like I had started adding a bunch of stuff, but I must have not hit save. Our office certainly has quite a few upcoming opportunities. So like I said, we have that May Write and Drive. There's also, and I'll send a recap email with all this.
Yeah, like,
There's also the micro mobility share survey is open for like community members to take as well right now. There's also the June 13th all-day event for commissions. I did send an email already and a calendar invite about that. And Jenny, Vice Chair did also have a question about that. Do you know, it's an all-day event. What would the importance of folks attending that like last cap commission day thing?
Yes, so it's an incredibly important community conversation. And this is really our big sort of place where we are investing a day. There are going to be representatives from commissions across the city, and city council will be there as well as staff. And what we're trying to do is come to decisions on those core decision points that have been asked, that were asked of y'all in the presentation. And so, yeah, we're really just trying to invest time in it. I would encourage you to go if you are interested in the topic. You know, my opinion is that the last CAP study, so the land availability and suitability study and code analysis project, are the most impactful things that the city can do right now in terms of policy change, because it's really about how we grow as a city, how we think about our affordability as a city, right? How we think about transportation, and where are we building? Are we building all on the edges of town, or are we building densely in our existing neighborhoods that are already served by water and buses and infrastructure, right? And so, yeah, it's very important. It's a big commitment, I know.
You know how it's going to be structured? Is it going to be similar to our meetings where you'll have the core people who are decision makers, and we can come in and watch for a while? And if we had a question, raise one, or just, is it going to be?
I believe it's everybody. So it's gonna be like tables, you know, round tables. There will be some discussions, but I don't think it's, we're watching city council. It will be facilitated. They are hiring outside facilitators for this just because due to the importance. And
Do you want us to register for it? Do you have to register?
I am not sure, but I can find that out. I imagine so that there is an RSVP, but I'm not positive.
No, you don't have.
June 13th,
It's a
Friday.
Friday the 13th.
And just to add on to what Tia said, there are 2 transportation surveys right now currently on Connect Flagstaff, which is the city's new survey mechanism. And it's just connect.flagstaffaz.gov, but one is on micromobility and is ours, and one is on safe routes to school and folks getting to school. So it's really important.
Jenny, do you know, as like an NAU student, is that what they're also going for? Or, because I noticed it was like aimed at parents and caregivers.
The survey, I don't know, but I'm sure anyone's open to think. I think they're mostly looking at our K-12 schools.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last. They're mostly looking at our what kind of school?
K-12 schools.
Charter, public, and private, et cetera.
Yes. Does anyone have any other to and from items? Upcoming events, opportunities?
Are there any future agenda items that you'd like to add?
I just thought of one for the tomb prop. I don't know exactly the date yet, but Friends of Flagstaff Future is wanting to put on a big strong towns like meeting where they're bringing someone in to talk about how to develop our community sustainably and responsibly. And I don't know exactly, I could keep us updated, but we're planning on that.
Will it be sometime this summer?
It should be.
Thank you.
Any future agenda items that you'd like to shout out as business?
But like, I saw there was a meeting last week. Like it's kind
Well,
of.
the next meeting is the retreat, right?
Yeah.
So
Next one is fair treat. Yeah. You all are good.
Cool, okay. That being said, do we have a motion for an adjournment?
motion we adjourn.
Few seconds.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is formally adjourned at 6:15. All the gift of 15 minutes.